Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine opening series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and in this video we're taking a look at a structure that middle-ranked TCEC chatter Mr. Beads calls the Semi-Slav, but that everyone else calls the Queen's Gambit declined Carlsbad structure. This has been one of my favourite structures for quite a while now, and I can tell you precisely when it happened. It was during a training with the late great Mark Dvoretsky, and he asked me, what do you know about this structure? And I answered, well, this and that. And he said, let me explain. And in 5 minutes, he just gave me a complete tour of the opening. All the plans, all the strategies, all the the ideas that great players had played and who preferred what and how they approached this. It was just amazing. And for me, it opened my eyes. This was the real. This was real insight. This was real knowledge, and that feeling of what a good player really looks like, what a good player really understands. I think that's burned bright in me ever since. Actually, in my book on the Queen's Gambit Declined, which I wrote in 1998, I did a big section on the Carlsbad structure, and basically I just used everything that Mark had told me, and many times I've had the comment about, wow, that was such an amazing section, and it's all due to Mark. Why is this structure so interesting? I think it's due to the variety of plans that White in particular has. So White can play for a so-called minority attack with b4 to b5. It's called a minority attack because you attack 4 black pawns with just 2 white ones, the A and B pawns. You can also play for a central break with e4, or you can play Harry Nelson Pillsbury style, which involves this setup, putting a knight to e5, playing f4 to cement it, and then afterwards playing on the king's side, maybe with rook f3 to h3. And those plans, you can feint at one and then go the other way. There really is it's just enormously rich, and what you see is that the great players of the past have all handled it in their own way. Karpov completely different to Botvinnik, for example. What is really amazing is that Black came up almost from the very first moment in human chess with an amazingly good and logical way of developing against this system. A way of developing that still, to this day, is absolutely the main one and considered to be the best one. Maybe just in the last couple of years, influenced by engines, as we'll see. There have been a few tweaks to the basic setup, but the essence just still remains, and that really is quite amazing. Just for historical interest, let me just show you how one of the earliest human games in this opening proceeded, because it's, well, quite amazing. It's Harry Nelson Pillsbury against Jackson Showalter, 1898 match in New York. A very exciting match, actually, which Pillsbury won 7-3, but some of the games were of excellent quality. In this position, Black played knight f8, which is an excellent plan. This knight defends the pawn h7, so that frees this knight to come either to h5 or to e4. Obviously, the knight moving from the square d7 frees this bishop. We can prepare a bishop e6, and then rook c8 maybe, and c5. And another key plan for Black is to play this interesting maneuver, which is to go g6, knight e6 to g7. This is where the arrows get huge, and then bring a bishop to this square f5 to swap it off. It's an incredibly sound, solid, but quite intricate plan. And already, 1898, the Black players were up to the task. Amazing. So this game proceeded quite interestingly. Pillsbury tried to set up his own trademark setup with knight e5 followed by f4, and Black reacted perfectly with knight g4. And this exchange of pieces and the attack of the knight on g4 is going to, well, make White exchange off pieces, and that really is a key thing that Black wants. Exchange off pieces, you relieve the cramped position, also give White less material in order to start up a kingside attack. And after takes, bishop g4, rook e1, queen f6, Pillsbury decided that a kingside attack wasn't going to happen. So what he did was something incredible, he switched to a minority attack. There we are. Rook e8 and b5, which may have come as a slight surprise to Showalter. So queen g5 was played, and here Pillsbury took a very typical, eventually, but for here it was new, decision. I mean, the best way to defend against the king side, there's all the threats of bishop f3, for example, is to play f4, accept this weak e3 pawn, but protect your king side. And of course, you know, whilst you've weakened this e4 square, you are going to start creating pressure against the queen side in this way. Queen f6, queen d2, bishop f5, a5, in we go, queen g6, bishop f5, queen f5, a6. And, well, you know, after takes, queen d7, a takes b7, clever little move, queen b5 is met by rook b1. Then a6, knight c3, queen b7. We can really see the ultimate aim of this sort of minority attack. I mean, you swap off two pawns, you leave black with 2 pawns on the queen side, but hopefully isolated and weak ones, you know. And well, you know, this should still be sort of maybe okay for black, I think, you know, with that weak e3 pawn, and maybe if that knight can get to a good square like c4, for example. But yeah, Pillsbury managed to win this position, and you know, why not? That's a perfectly acceptable result as well, possibility, you know. But this was already happening in 1898, so you know, it is quite amazing. However, you know, with the engines, you know, the engines really started to put a few tweaks on that, and well, you know, the inspiration for this video was a game that we'll see at the end of this video, which is the TCEC Season 22 Super Final game between Stockfish and Komodo. And well, you know, it was just very interesting to see how you know, in a Queen's Gambit Declined, how are the engines playing nowadays, you know, and what are the things they're trying to do. It was a very interesting and somewhat intriguing and confusing game. But you know, going back to modern engines, actually some of the most interesting stuff happened starting with the AlphaZero-Stockfish match. This variation occurred quite a lot, also in a lot of bonus games that were run, you know, from typical openings like, you know, d4, d5 or knight f3, knight f6. And this was a position that cropped up quite a bit in those lines where AlphaZero was white and Stockfish was black, also the other way round. And after c6, e3, the natural human move is to play bishop e7. But as we saw in Pillsbury Showalter, but actually in these positions, Stockfish was playing the move bishop d6, which is not unnatural in actual fact, but somehow barely played at the human level. I think probably human players been so impressed with their ingenuity and creativity in finding this bishop e7 plan and then the maneuver of the knight round to f8, that somehow other possibilities had got ignored. Now in the AlphaZero-Stockfish match, this didn't work out too well. Bishop d3 played, castles, knight f3, rook e8, castles, because Stockfish was playing the move bishop g4. Now this is really in principle a very good move, and the idea is simply to play knight bd7, and well, if your light squared bishop is already developed off c8, you can play knight bd7 and then you can leave it there. You don't need this complicated maneuver knight f8 to e6. So it's incredibly logical. The only problem was that Stockfish was getting hit with this move queen b3, hitting b7, which is actually slightly awkward. You know, this queen is tied to the defense of f6, so can't really go to defend from c7 or even e7. We'll just get hit with bishop f6 at some stage. Stockfish came up with knight a6, defending b7 tactically because of knight b4 and the queen is trapped. But after rook e1, it was playing always the move bishop f3, gf3. And yeah, this was really running into the AlphaZero attacking juggernaut, really, which essentially what white did was simply transfer rooks to the g file and pile in against the black king, and well, a lot of games were won in this line. I think there's a very good example or two in Game Changer, the book that Natasha Regan and I wrote about AlphaZero. However, this idea bishop d6 was extremely interesting, and what you see is that human players, presumably influenced by working with Stockfish, have started playing a lot of these ideas. In particular, the idea of playing the bishops not to d6 and g4, but actually to d6 and e6, and then playing knight bd7 and maybe playing a move like g5, even aggressive, or just castling and playing for rook c8 and c5. You know, it's and there've been a lot of games with these sort of setups. The one thing that you've got to be really careful about, and this is a general point in the Queen's Gambit Declined, is you've got to be careful about the fact, has white developed this knight on g1? This is really, really key, because if the knight has been developed to f3, for example, in this position already, then this sort of idea with bishop d6, bishop e6 is absolutely fine. If the knight hasn't been developed to f3, then there's an extra possibility, which is really dangerous. And I hadn't actually understood this particular wrinkle myself until I saw the game Lila against Rothscharder in Division P, so not the infra final, but in a game from Division P. And here Lila reacted to bishop e6 with f4, making use of the fact that the knight's still on g1. And yeah, the big problem is that this f-pawn, it stops black from developing with knight d7 as black would want to, due to f5. So black actually ended up playing bishop e7, knight f3. You can see we're sort of aiming for a Pillsbury structure here with knight e5. So you know, these 1898 concepts coming back in you know, in an engine game played in 2022. Knight e4 takes, knight takes, queen e7, queen d2. Actually a very nice move, avoiding a pin with bishop g4 to make sure white gets a knight on e5. Castles, castles, f5, knight e5. And well, this was a very beautiful game, Lila against Rothscharder, and it's looked at in a video on the Silicon Road YouTube site, and I'll put a link to that in the comments. This was very strong, you know, play from Lila. But you know, if white's already got a knight on f3, and you get this, you know, through different move orders, then this basically Stockfish inspired plan of bishop d6, bishop e6, knight bd7 is very, very interesting. Going back to the normal lines, I mean, AlphaZero and Stockfish also played a lot of ideas, a lot of games using the old-fashioned approach. So bishop d3 castles. You will notice one difference though, and that's that black has played this move h7 to h6, and both AlphaZero and Stockfish did that. And yeah, that was quite striking, because h6 has always been said to be a weakness, because weakening this this dark square, it weakens the king side a lot, and it was really supposed to be a bad move, you know. And but somehow I think, you know, around 2016, somewhere like that, Vladimir Kramnik started playing a few games with that. And well, you know, there were quite a few games with AlphaZero and Stockfish playing this, both AlphaZero and Stockfish playing this with black. Now knight e2 is again exploiting the fact that you've delayed committing the knight to f3, playing the knight to e2. And what does this give white? Well, it actually gives white the possibility of playing the Botvinnik plan. And the Botvinnik plan is to expand in the centre with f3 and e4. It was first seen in the game Botvinnik-Keres. And in actual fact, you know, Botvinnik, it wasn't kind of like a clear plan that he had, I think, before the game, because he started off playing rook b1 and going for a minority attack. But when Keres did something just a little bit odd in the game, he suddenly switched to f3, e4, and well, this was like a revelation. I mean, it's a really, really strong plan. Now, this move order has an interesting little wrinkle here, but I think I just want to show you one AlphaZero-Stockfish 8 match that that was played. And it ended in a draw, and it was absolutely stunning from both sides. Stockfish played knight b6, so not putting the knight to f8, because after all, knight to f8, when you've played this move h6, G6 is not a possible square because we've got the bishop and the queen attacking. So Stockfish looks for a different square for the knight. Not a bad one, this one. This knight can come to c4, or you can play, once the bishop moves, knight c8 to d6 and attack all the central squares. F3 from AlphaZero, looking for e4. Bishop d7, and now a quite amazing sequence. This move a4 was played, which is very, very unusual in these positions. Obviously, you know, chasing the knight on b6, but black plays a5, and this covers the b4 square, and it looks basically like a4 stopped white from ever advancing on the queen side with b4 to b5. But e4 takes knight g4. Always one of the things that you've got to watch out for with white when you play d4 and e4. Then the dark squares around the centre are weak. But here bishop takes e7 was played, and here you see the point of including a4 to a5, because queen takes e7 allows this move queen b3, hitting the knight on b6, which is now loose, and also attacking the pawn on f7. So you can't meet it with queen b4 as you'd like to, because there's simply queen takes f7. Well, I mean, the game itself from this point on was absolutely amazing. There's a video on it on the Game Changer website, so I won't actually go through it all now. I'll just show you this middle game position that was reached, and well, you can judge for yourselves whether you want to go and watch that video. It's really a quite astounding game, and you know, the attacking power of AlphaZero, and the absolutely astonishing defensive display from Stockfish. Stockfish 8 at the time. Think of that. You know, it's we're almost up to Stockfish 15 nowadays. You know, it was really quite incredible, and yeah, really a classic game, this one. But that was the e3 to e4 plan. Funnily enough, in the games, you know, that Stockfish AlphaZero played as black against Stockfish, AlphaZero was actually playing the Kramnik plan, which was very clever. The idea was that this move h6, bishop h4, the pawn h-pawn is no longer attacked by this battery, and this means that black can play the move knight h5, and well, knight h5. This forces the exchange of bishops, and after bishop e7, queen e7, you'll notice that white no longer is in time to play the move f3 because e3 is hanging, and this basically stops white from playing Botvinnik's plan. And this was Kramnik's point, and yeah, this was also a very popular option with AlphaZero. And yeah, I mean, there were some very exciting games in this line. There was yeah, I mean, the one thing that AlphaZero showed is that neural net thing, is the idea simply of throwing this h pawn forward. Even in these positions, which are supposed to be, you know, extremely quiet, extremely calm, nothing at all to do for black except sit and wait for white's plan. Yeah, AlphaZero was throwing forward this rook's pawn down the board, playing h4, h3, and also g5, g4. You know, and it was really, yeah, I mean, this was really incredibly dangerous. You know, I'm just cycling you through some moves here, and yeah, this game got into Game Changer. It was really a fantastic one from black. Most of the games ended in draws, but still, you know, this attacking plan on the king side was, yeah, was really quite exceptional. Now, you know, the interesting thing was that, you know, when AlphaZero, you know, got the position through this move order, then, well, you saw the danger that Stockfish faced. But when the position was reached through this move order with the knight already on f3, and you get that through yeah, various move orders, you know, often from for example, a semi-Slav. That's right, Mr. Beads. From a semi-Slav move order, you can get it, and through you know, a few other things. And well, here in actual fact, you saw that both Stockfish and AlphaZero were really struggling to make anything of these positions with white. It just looks like this Queen's Gambit declined structure is so solid that that really you can't do much with it. Now, when I was preparing for the super final, obviously, you know, this is 5 years on from AlphaZero-Stockfish 8. You know, we're talking Stockfish 14 dev, nearly Stockfish 15 against Komodo Dragon. You know, well, you know, these positions won't have become any less drawn. But I was quite excited when I found the possibility to give white an incredibly good version of this structure. And I'll just show you how the game went. I got this game actually from this idea for this opening from the book Winning by Nigel Short, in which he describes a game that he played against Ulf Andersson. And Nigel Short himself was a huge expert on the black side of the Queen's Gambit declined, but just for this one game, to surprise Ulf Andersson, he played 1d4 himself. Now Ulf was a little bit confused and was unsure which variation to play against Nigel. Nigel was a big expert on the Tartakova, bishop e7, bishop g5. Pardon me. So I think that Ulf suspected that Nigel might have some ideas there. So Ulf decided to go for the Cambridge Springs. c6, bishop g5, knight bd7. The problem was that after e3, queen a5, Nigel called Ulf's bluff with c takes d5. And, the sharpest line is knight takes d5, but yeah, this is a very sharp line. I mean, it goes back to Alekin Erva in actual fact, and you know, there are pawn sacrifices, exchange sacrifices. It's really, really sharp, and well, Ulf wasn't sure whether Nigel had prepared this or not. Not according to Nigel, but he replied with e takes d5. But well, essentially, you know, we're going to get into a Carlsbad structure, but you're sort of wondering, what is that queen on a5 doing? And Ulf kind of made it worse, really, because he didn't... I think that maybe even knight e4 is possible in this position to try and justify, you know, the queen on a5. But Ulf played the move bishop d6, which is kind of odd when you think about it, because the queen's away from d8. And, well, basically, I mean, you know, this knight now can't move from d7 because bishop takes f6 will be dangerous. So that's another slight mistake. And after castles queen c2, rook e8. Well, Nigel already in his book, he said that, you know, white's got such an embarrassment of choices in this position, you know, that it's just incredible. He can play any plan, you know, and just stand clearly better. And in actual fact, we're basically reaching a Carlsbad structure with white having 3 extra tempi. So, for example, this was the game Komodo against Stockfish. After h6, bishop h4, black played queen d8. So black's played queen d8, queen a5, back to d8. And after rook e1, black played bishop e7. And so black's played bishop d6 to e7 as well. So, you know, I mean, this is about as terrible as you could possibly get, you would have thought. So I was sure that, you know, okay, you know, the normal positions, there may be plus 0.3, plus 0.4 for white, but given 3 extra tempi, surely we must be getting to a Sufi-worthy position where, you know, white might actually be able to make something very serious of it. In actual fact, you know, Komodo Dragon got absolutely nowhere against Stockfish as white. And funnily enough, this opening had also been chosen by the bookmakers for Division P, including the great Cato Nelson Hernandez, who's done the books for many years at the TCEC and has just retired now, but you know, leaving behind a huge legacy of the most amazing database you've ever seen, millions and millions of games, bigger than anything else you've ever seen, and also some incredible books, you know, to ensure you know, that the TCEC is such good entertainment. But he'd chosen this opening as well, and in those 2 games, Komodo and Stockfish had both drawn both games. So I was starting to feel a little bit hot under the collar here. You know, were we going to see 2 more draws? Well, in this position, you know, Komodo and Stockfish Komodo just didn't manage to get going. I mean, what actually happened was that, you know, pieces were shuffled around somehow, but well, you know, white had a dynamic advantage, you know, 3 tempi, and if you just shuffle pieces around, then, you know, that dynamic advantage disappears. And already here, you know, you wouldn't guess that that white had come out of the opening 3 tempi up, and Stockfish had no problems holding this at all. The course of the game between Stockfish and Komodo was actually, I'd say, even more mysterious. And it, you know, it made me laugh, and it made me scratch my head, because so Komodo went rook e8, rook e1, so we got quite, you know, similar moves here. a6, a3, And now black starts giving up the tempi that he had. Queen c7. The queen goes back to c7. Slightly odd square, actually. I mean, it's sort of exposed on the half-open c-file, and a bishop g3 will gain a tempo later. So rook c1 played, bishop e7, h3, and then queen d8. And well, actually, black's made it even worse. Black didn't only go queen a5 to d8. Black went queen a5 to c7 to d8. So that's one extra tempo that Stockfish has gained. The interesting thing is that, you know, in this position, Stockfish's evaluation, Komodo's too, was about plus 1.2, which, you know, should be a serious advantage. And yet, serious things didn't really seem to be happening. I mean, it's really as if, you know, this position, essentially any action that any of the sides take, moving pawns forwards, moving pieces forwards towards the opponent, that just sort of triggers a plan for the opponent, gives black, for example, the opportunity to swap off pieces. And yeah, and you know, that sort of any action that either side takes ruins the advantage. And well, you really get that sense when you see what Stockfish did here. So bishop g3, bishop f8, bishop h4, bishop e7. Stockfish has got this mannerism of doing these repetitions. And then king h1. Mysterious. A5 from Komodo. Slightly double-edged move, actually, A5. I've actually seen, again, Vladimir Kramnik doing this a lot, together with a plan on the queen side with b5 and even b4. Or even sometimes a4 followed by knight b6 to c4. But it is quite risky. The key, the nasty point about a5 is that if you ever decide that you need to play c5 to put some pressure on the white centre, then this b5 square is really, really weak. But a5 was met by bishop h4, bishop e7, bishop g3, bishop f8. Now, the one thing that you notice in this position, in comparison to Komodo Stockfish, is that black isn't actually getting any further with sort of eliminating the logjam in black's development. So the knight's still on d7, the bishop's still on c8, the rook's still on a8. So from that point of view, black isn't managing to change things for the better. But of course, white's not really doing that much. But now we got some shuffling. King g1, we play king h1, now we play king g1. Knight h5, bishop h2, knight hf6. It's really as if, you know, both sides are saying, this one's fine, I'm fine, you make a weakness. No, you make a weakness. But here Stockfish did a little bit of expansion. It played the move g4. So gaining some space on the king side, stopping knight to h5, of course. Maybe getting an idea of playing g5 later, but it's all pretty unclear. I mean, I think the thing that white would really want is to get the knight into e5 and then play f4, because then with those two pawns on f4 and g4, we're going to get serious threats. But that's not quite there yet. After g6, white played bishop g3, a4, which is an interesting one, just trying to divert the knight over here. You can take this pawn, but you get extra counterplay with stuff like h5, and well, the fact that this knight is en prise to the rook leads to some nasty stuff. Knight e4 is another good idea, making exploiting the knight on a4 to occupy e4 and now attack the bishop on g3. Some counterplay for black there. So Stockfish just avoids it. Played bishop h4, pinning the knight, bishop g7, and now king g2. You know, just waiting, really cool. And now some moves ensued where you just sort of scratch your head. Queen a5, defending the pawn. King h2, queen c7 check, king h1, and now queen d8. You know, and you're really, you know, looking at these moves and thinking, I don't understand anything. But I think it's all again due to this idea, the fact that both sides are thinking that you know, changing the current situation is only going to give the opponent a plan. The interesting thing is that Komodo was the first engine to crack, because it played this move b5, and straight away it was met by whack in the center e4. It's really as if, you know, Stockfish was just waiting for a weakness to produce itself in the black position, and then its plan would be possible with e4. And yeah, you know, for all these maneuvers, I'm not sure really that g4 and king h1 has really helped white particularly, but obviously it doesn't seem to have made any problems. So takes knight e4, and after rook e6, we got another bit of shuffling with King G1. Again, it's just like, you know, Stockfish is saying, okay, I've made the next step, but it's still not time yet to really go all in, you know. And Queen F8 was played, takes, Knight E5. And this was actually a very pleasant position for white. I mean, this pawn on c6 is very weak, you know, really tied down. We're threatening f4 and then f5, and well, the weaknesses that black's created on the king side are going to be quite serious, because this battery, you know, along the b1 h7 diagonal is going to really come into its own when we get an f4 f5. This rook on e6 somehow has got, you know, misplaced, and you know, this bishop on c8, rook on a8 are still undeveloped. Now you can follow the rest of the game. It was quite a long game and involved some intricate endgame play from Stockfish to bring home the win. But you know, just the general yeah, what generally happened there with all of these king moves, king g2, king h2, king h1, king g1, was really quite striking. And you know, I think yeah, especially striking for you know, for me as a human player, because the battle for the tempo in the opening, you know, that's one of the fundamental things. Losing one tempo in the opening for human players, that's really seen as critical. And yet here in this structure, the engines could take a loss of 3 tempi, even 4 tempi, and just play the position quite normally. You know, it's really quite amazing. But I think it says something fundamental about these structures, that yeah, you know, positioning your pieces to anticipate action from the opponent, that's really the key of it. And well, you see that even with 3 extra tempi and you know, billions of nodes of calculation, you know, even Stockfish was really reluctant to really take huge action until black had weakened itself with b5, and then e4 came in, and all of a sudden, you know, all of the big hitting was starting. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed that little tour of the Queen's Gambit Carlsbad structure, you know, through, you know, human eyes from 1898 and through the eyes of engines, you know. And well, you see, you know, just how you know, some of the things that we started off with as humans, they've been tweaked by all sorts of ingenious new plans by engines. And but you know, coming into the year 2022, super final between, you know, the 2 strongest chess entities that the world has ever seen. Well, maybe Leela on top of that as well. And yeah, you know, you see how difficult and complicated these positions are, how cautious you have to be before exposing yourself, how long you have to wait before you can strike, you know, if you want to play it perfectly. I think it's really shows the richness of chess, and well, just shows that I'm sure there's still many more things to discover in the Queen's Gambit Declined in the years to come. There we are. If you enjoyed this video, why not give a like or subscribe to the channel? Always glad to see new subscribers. Even take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which looks at masses of engine games, and also filled with tips for working with engines, which is, I think, you know, really quite a unique part of that book. Also, why not take a look at Game Changer, which was the first book that yeah, that Natasha Regan and I wrote together about engines, about AlphaZero, and well worth seeing if you haven't seen it. But otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching this this video, and hope to see you for next one. Thanks for watching.